You've been gone for longer than I expected, Moiraine said. Longer than I expected too, Rand admitted. Today has been full of surprises. Speaking of which, we need to prepare. He led the way to the library, Moiraine following behind him. For what? She asked. Rand didn't answer until he'd closed the door behind her and they were assured of privacy. Only Loyal was here. We will be welcoming Elida tomorrow. Moiraine froze, staring at him in shock. Loyal was the first to recover. I'm sorry, Rand, he said in his slow, rumbling voice. I believe I must have heard you wrong. Weren't we trying not to draw her attention? Moiraine asked. Hey, I know you said you might run into her while you went off on your somewhat reckless plan to meet the daughter heir, but none of that included inviting her over. Even outside of what you told me about her activities in the ill future, I would prefer to see her as little as possible. She had a foretelling, Rand said, but a completely different one from the first time around. It left her with a rather more positive opinion of me, and Queen Morghese decided to turn the interrogation, I suppose, into something of a private meeting to question me about certain things. Considering the wording of the foretelling and the way the Queen and Elida seemed to be regarding me, I decided to first reveal my heritage and then that I am Davern. This prompted Elida to reveal a foretelling she had in the past that she now believes she has misinterpreted for a long time. What it comes down to is that she considers me the key to defeating the Dark One in the last battle, although she does not know that I am the Dragon Reborn, or indeed a channeler at all. I'm seeing a few ways in which we could make use of this. If I still had any doubts about your Tavervan nature, they are gone now, Moiraine said, sitting down. Rand took a chair that allowed for easy eye contact. I'll do you one better, Rand smirked. Loghain very visibly reacted when he saw me, as he has the talent to see Tavernan. So, what did you come up with? Moiraine asked. Hey, my primary concern with cleansing set in, apart from making sure we won't be interrupted, was that many Aes Sedai would likely not believe it worked. With Elida's cooperation, even if she does not know the actual plan, we can make sure a large group of trustworthy Aes Sedai will back up the claim. On top of that, if Elida herself were to be supportive of me, which seems to be how she's already leaning, it gives me a way in with the red ajah. Of course, I also have a way in with the blue ajah through you and the amyrlin, and the combination will hopefully reduce tensions between the two ajahs, which might drag the other ajahs along. A more unified white tower, in particular one on good terms with me, would be a major advantage. You are putting a lot of faith in a woman who showed herself untrustworthy in your old timeline, Moiraine said. One that I myself am not particularly inclined to trust either. If there is one thing the previous timeline shows, it is that Elida cannot be trusted with power, Rand said. Which is why I am willing to go to great lengths to ensure she does not get it. But while she was always known as harsh and abrasive, she was not a power-crazed lunatic during her time as Queen Morghese's advisor. When you also consider that the Black Ajah was elbow-deep into her administration, and indeed into the act of deposing Siwan itself, as well as the major differences in her attitude to me, which will likely extend to you and Siwan to a degree. Due to the different foretelling she had today and her past foretelling, I believe it is unlikely for her to walk that same path. I am skeptical, but then I do not see how you wish to secure Elida's cooperation in the first place. Rand smiled. Then, let me explain. Elida was in a pensive mood, although others might call it impatience or even more abrasive than usual, as she strode through the city towards the inn named the Queen's Blessing. The abundance of white cloth and the occasional screamed insults certainly did not help in that regard. She was unsure whether to be hopeful or suspicious after the rather unusual meeting with the man who called himself Rand aL'Thor yesterday. About the only thing she was sure of was that the man was Tavern, as he had claimed. He had seemed too knowledgeable and too calm, as if he had not believed himself to be in any possible danger at any one time. Sure of himself, yet always respecting Morghese and Elida's positions. At the same time, Elida doubted he had extended that to the unruly daughter heir, which she believed might have been part of why Elaine was so willing to defend him in the first place, as if he had known exactly how to approach her. And that was before taking into account the words that had unexpectedly left Elida's own mouth. With the false dragon Loghain on her mind, and prophecies about the shadow and tarmongaidon on her tongue, it was a small jump for Elida to wonder whether aL'Thor might be a false dragon or, light forbid, the true dragon reborn. But even though he might be an enigma, he was also unquestionably sane. And more importantly, there was no way the dragon reborn could plausibly be the Eye of the Storm and an Isle of Calm in a sea of destruction. No. The dragon reborn was, or rather would be, the storm and the destruction. By that reasoning, aL'Thor might even be the one who protected those around him from the chaos the dragon reborn brought, if he really was going to appear soon. And of course, this was yet further supported by the last part of her foretelling, that he would protect and shield the kingdom of Andor, arguably the most powerful nation in the world. And then there was the separate issue that was Loghain Ablar, the captured false dragon, who, after always having insisted that he was the true dragon, had suddenly changed his mind yesterday and now said he was indeed a false dragon. Elida had wondered whether this had any connection to aL'Thor, but apart from his ta'veren nature, she could not see how, and thus she had concluded that it was likely Loghain's own madness that had made him change his mind. She arrived at her destination, and the moment she stepped through the door, all conversation went quiet. Her eyes roamed over the patrons before landing on aL'Thor. The man was sharing a table with 4 other youths, 2 boys and 2 girls, the latter 2 being exceptionally strong channelers, immediately drawing Elida's attention. In fact, she was reasonably certain the younger of the 2 was as strong in the one power as Elaine, and the other was even stronger. Had they been hidden in 2 rivers? Based on their somewhat unusual style of dress and what aL'Thor had told her and Morghese, that seemed the obvious guess. Speaking of, the red-haired man seemed just as much at ease between those 4, presumably his friends, as he had yesterday at the royal court. Then, Elida's attention moved to the next table over, and her face soured. There, accompanied by a man who, despite his greying hair, was clearly still in the prime of his life, probably aL'Thor's adopted father, sat Moiraine and her warder. The blue Aes Sedai returned her gaze, and although she seemed to return the sentiment, she hid it better. Presumably, she'd known ahead of time that Elida was coming. Elida glanced back at aL'Thor, wondering whether he'd known about the animosity between the red and blue ajahs, and her and Moiraine in particular. It was hard to believe he was not aware of at least the former. As she approached the tables, he was the first to stand. Elida Sedai, thank you for coming to see us. Master Gil has assured us we can use his private dining room for conversation. Shall we move there? Elida nodded minutely. You neglected to tell me that the Aes Sedai you were traveling with is Moiraine. Will that be an issue, considering the magnitude of the topics we will be discussing? aL'Thor responded, unfazed. Elida was tempted to say yes, however, he made an annoyingly good point. If this man was the key to defeating the Dark One in the last battle, it would not do to anger him over her dislike of Moiraine. People tended to be much easier to steer in the right direction if they liked you. So instead, she answered in the negative and followed him to the private room, Moiraine behind her. Moraine's warder remained outside, presumably to make sure no one would listen in on them. I know you do not have the best history with each other, but I am glad that you are willing to have this conversation nonetheless, aL'Thor said, unexpectedly taking charge. So he had known about their adverse relationship. It was possible that Moiraine had only informed him after he had spoken with Elida, but she deemed that unlikely. aL'Thor said that you somehow learned the weave for traveling, Elida said skeptically. I did, Moiraine responded, apparently taking over despite first impressions, although I fear I cannot currently reveal how. We would be able to bring you the false dragon and the rest of your traveling party to within about a day's travel from Tar Valon. Any closer than that is problematic for various reasons. And what do you want in return? Elida asked. That was regular Aes Sedai politics, after all. And the blue ajah in particular. I will also be sending a letter ahead to the amyrlin seat, Moiraine said, and Elida's eyes narrowed slightly. Unlike what seemed to be all other Aes Sedai, Elida had not forgotten that Moiraine Damodred and seanchan had been practically inseparable before they were raised to the shawl. She did not buy for a second that the two had not kept up their friendship, and possibly more than that, after becoming Aes Sedai, no matter what they tried to make the world believe. In the meanwhile, Moiraine continued speaking. In this letter, I am suggesting that the amyrlin seat leads a rather unusual experiment. She will ask you to participate, and our request of you is that you not only accept, but actively support her in this endeavor. What is this experiment? Elida asked skeptically. It concerns the false dragon Loghain, Moiraine said. I have heard about and personally encountered several signs that tarmongaidon is near, and your foretellings only add to this. I believe that it would be highly valuable for the White Tower to have a better understanding of the taint on Sedin than we currently do. All we know right now is that its insanity takes hold slowly over the course of years, although there are signs that the speed at which it propagates depends on the frequency with which a man channels, and the amount they channel at once. For the suggested experiment, the goal is simply to briefly form a circle that includes the false dragon where? Never, Elida said decisively. How will you ensure the true dragon reborn remains sane until tarmongaidon if you do not know anything about the taint? Rand parried immediately. We keep him shielded until that day comes, Elida responded. And never train him? Rand asked. How will you convince him not to turn on you? Where will he gain the skills to fight the armies of the Dark One? Who will fight the Forsaken? Elida Sedai, the first Forsaken, are breaking away from the seals on the Dark One's prison as we speak. I have encountered one of them in my dreams. You and Moiraine cannot stand up to them. Egwene and Nynaeve are untrained and barely have sufficient power to delay them. How many channelers do you know that can match the commanders of the Dark One's army from the Age of Legends? How will you stop Grandal from worming her way into the minds of rulers? How will you protect kings and lords from Samael's blade? How will you avoid Messiah stirring strife in the White Tower when even your most powerful allies are but annoying pests to them? If he goes insane, he will cause a destruction worse than all 13 Forsaken together. So study the taint, Rand responded. Learn what it does, how it acts, so that you can ensure that the Dragon Reborn will not suffer. Its maddening influence. If that were possible, the Aes Sedai of old would have done so. The breaking of the world followed immediately on the War of the Shadow, Moiraine argued. Their world was torn apart before they had the ability to study the taint, and they knew even less about it to start with than we do now. This is the favor I ask in exchange for lending you my ear in the future, Rand said, to support the amyrlin seat in this one experiment. Elida knew with absolute certainty that the two were keeping something important from her, and if she had not known better, she would have said that the man before her was the Dragon Reborn himself. No. Most likely he would be a counter to the Dragon Reborn, perhaps even the one through which the Dragon Reborn could be kept under control. However, if this was the favor aL'Thor wanted to ask, she could honor that. He could have requested far worse. What is the experiment? To link to the false dragon and pass leadership of the link to all sisters, each holding on long enough to ensure they can recognize the taint, and no longer. Then, one more experiment several days later, similar but not identical to the first. And in exchange, Rand aL'Thor will take me on as an advisor if I request it, Elida said. It would have been a far riskier deal had her own foretelling not revealed that he would become a leader. That is acceptable to me, Rand said. To me as well, Moiraine said. Then we are agreed. I will support the amyrlin seat in this experiment and participate myself. No matter how much it disgusted her that she would have to channel any amount of that tainted Sedin, the deal was worth it. Even discounting the minute chance they might actually learn something useful from this ridiculous experiment. When will you be ready to leave for Tar Valon? Moiraine asked. Later this afternoon, then I will be by to provide the gateway. We will ourselves leave soon after, but once I am less strapped for time, I will seek the opportunity to spread knowledge of the required weave. Elida nodded. I will be on my way. Mother? I have succeeded in my endeavors, but in doing so, I have encountered many surprises even beyond what I was prepared for, some of which Elida Sedai will be able to tell you about once she arrives, which should be sooner than you expect. Many things that I want to share with you are too important to leave to a letter, and I will aim to visit the White Tower as soon as possible. Hopefully no more than a week from when you read this. There is one thing that is of immediate and utmost concern. I will ask that you trust me in this request, no matter what it takes. When the false dragon arrives, do not carry out his sentencing and punishment immediately. Rather, find 2 Aes Sedai of every ajah, preferably respected individuals. Together with these 14 sisters, form a circle with the false dragon, and pass along leadership of the circle to every sister, until they are all confident in their ability to recognize the taint on Sedin. I have reliable information that with a man present, you and all 14 sisters can join in the circle at the same time. In addition, it is not even possible for the false dragon to lead the circle so long as 13 or more Aes Sedai are in it, and no other men are. Then, several days later, gather the same Aes Sedai and repeat this experiment. You will know when will be the right time for this. To secure the false dragon's assistance, promise him a delay of punishment by a week or 2. Last, please invite Elida to this experiment. She has promised to support you in this, and is aware of the nature of the first experiment. I like her as little as ever, but I have reason to believe she will not cause trouble in the near future. Signed, Moiraine de Modred. Swan Sanchez stared at the letter. What had that bloody woman been doing this time? He sighed. She really wanted to tear the letter to pieces, burn it, and declare Moiraine's ridiculous request total nonsense. But damn it, she trusted the woman. And from the way she had written the letter, she knew damn well that a stunt on this level would cost Xuan significant political capital in the tower, and that she was convinced it was worth it. And how had she secured the cooperation of that red pain in the arse? Why do we have to leave now? Matt grumbled. Because we don't have much time, Rand responded as he prepared his horse. I had to ensure everything lines up, as a cooperative and unified White Tower will save us an incredible number of headaches down the line. But now, the first Forsaken are about to escape, and we must head them off at the eye of the world. We're bloody insane, Matt muttered. They're Forsaken. Why exactly are we not running to Ilion yet? Would you rather face Samael instead? At least that's where he went last time. Bloody hell. Darabon, then. That's as far as you can get from Shi'enar, right? Mokadian, Rand said. Bilal. Blood and ashes. I should just stay here. Gravin. Matt stared at his longtime friend. Are you bloody kidding me? We've also got Lanfear chasing me around, Ishmael running around the place believing he's the Dark One, Graendal in Arad Doman, Semihaj joining up with invaders from across the sea, Messiana infiltrating the Aes Sedai. What do you prefer? A simple life, Matt grunted. Rand laughed. So much for our grand adventure. Come on, Matt, you'll be fine. You'll be fine. We know what we're up against, we know what we can do, and our enemy is completely in the dark and working off of a multitude of incorrect assumptions. We're ticking every single box for a successful battle. You're lacking in soldier morale, Matt argued. Rand laughed. So you have been paying attention. Luckily, the soldiers that are lacking in morale are not supposed to even enter the battle. Everyone ready? Moiraine called. Way! They were still in the stables, Tom Merrilin having rejoined them. There was enough bad blood between him and both Elida and Morghese that they'd decided it was best if he didn't show his face during the Aes Sedai's visit. In addition, Loal had also decided to travel with them, expressing interest in seeing the influence of a Tavervan up close. No calls to wait came, so after making certain no one else was present, Moiraine wove a gateway that led to a forested area where snow still dotted the landscape. Rand was the first one to step through into the chilly wind, leading his horse with him. It's cold here, Matt muttered after he stepped out of the gateway, already rubbing his arms. Enjoy it while it lasts, Rand said. The blight is like an oven, and not a dry one. It's not like I want to go there. If you want me to deal with the taint before I start to go insane, yes you do. Now stop moping. You're not going to be in any danger. Worst case, I need to channel for a bit, and Agenor and Balthamel are both not entirely there anymore. Plus, we have the element of surprise. What about Ishmael? Rand kept his grin off his face. No matter his attitude, Matt did pay attention. He'll focus entirely on me. If he's even physically there in the first place. Enough dawdling, Moiraine said. Let's go. Why can't we go straight to the eye? Perrin asked. Because it moves, Moiraine said. It's always located in a different position and appears based on need. Not quite true, Rand corrected, although it does give off that impression. The weaves protecting the eye play with the perceptions of those nearby, confusing them and leading them across strange paths to make it appear as if the location of the eye shifts. This protects it against the forces of the shadow that surround it on all sides, but also confuses previous visitors like me and Moiraine enough that we cannot simply make a gateway there. With the knowledge I have now, I could overcome these protections, but that is not enough to work off of an older memory. Will you be able to lead us straight there then? Moiraine asked. I should be able to, Rand responded. I expect this is also what allowed Agenor and Balthamel to find it, despite having no need to be there. Is that why you felt comfortable spending the night in Faldara? Moiraine asked. Yes, Rand replied. And we've also won a full day because we didn't use the ways. Faldara, Mumat asked. The northernmost fortified town in Shienar, Rand replied. We will be meeting with Lord Agelmar there. One of the great generals, Matt said. Indeed, although we will not be talking about any of that yet. For the next hour, their small but ever-growing party made its way through the frigid land where spring had not yet arrived, although, Rand realized, that was a common factor across the entire Westlands, perhaps even the entire world. Still, it was even more apparent here. Then, they crested one last hill, and Faldara came into view. It had been built for purpose in its entirety, with imposing grey walls and towers dominating the view. And outside those walls, a large stretch of land it had. All its trees and other vegetation removed, making it impossible to sneak up to the fortifications without being detected. Inside the walls, Rand knew, there was a law that no one was allowed to hide their face for any reason, as this would leave Myrddraal unable to hide. Similarly, at night, every street would be lit, preventing Myrddraal from slipping into or out of shadows. An ability even Rand, with all his knowledge, could not figure out. The best theory was that it was, in some twisted way, associated with the One Power. This itself depended on another theory. When Agenor had created the Trollocs, he had used humans for his experiments and combined them with animals through a mixture of genetic manipulation and the One Power. The Myrddraal themselves had been an unexpected result, occasionally being born to Trollocs, but one theory regarding their origin was that Myrddraal were those individuals that, if they had been human, would have been channelers. As they approached the gates, Lan told them all to take off their facial coverings and explained the reason for this. Shortly after, the first shouts came. Daishan, Daishan. Last time, Rand had been confused. This time, he kept half an eye on Lan, although the warder didn't betray any emotion. Will the golden crane fly again? One soldier asked, but Lan gave a non-committal answer. The warder was incredibly well respected in the Borderlands, and not without reason. Not only was he one of the best blade masters in the entire Westlands, with unparalleled knowledge of the Blight, he was also the uncrowned king of Malkia, which had been betrayed and fallen to the Blight when Lan was still in diapers. Until he had become Moiraine's warder, Lan had always considered it his destiny to fight the Blight until his death, and part of him still did. However, he always sought to do so alone, without leading other men to their deaths. And the golden crane, of course, was the symbol of Malkia. Loyal, too, was recognized, although merely as an ogier. He was surprised for a moment, before smiling widely and returning the greetings. Faldara was crowded beyond belief, certainly as busy as Cayman had been, but the mood was subdued. Rand remembered why. Masses of Trollocs had been gathering at Tarwin's Gap, the pass between Malkia and the Blasted Lands, a natural choke point. Tomorrow, the armies of Shi'enar would ride to stand against the shadow, and they were riding out to die, based on what the scouts had been reporting. It was why Lan's appearance was so anticipated. People were expecting him to ride with them. Perhaps they were even expecting a miracle from a man who was an icon of the everlasting war with the Blight. They arrived at the fortress in the center of the city to more shouts for Lan and the Golden Crane. Here, it was as busy as it had been in the entire city, but there was a purpose to it. Smiths, Fletchers, everyone was busy preparing as much for the coming battle as they could. Despite that, a grizzled man in armor immediately approached them when they arrived at the stables. Ingtar. The last time around, the man had given his life for Rand, seeking to make amends for his actions as a dark friend. A cause he was currently still dedicated to, if Rand remembered correctly. It was the events surrounding their visit to Faldara, and the months after that had given the man hope the light might still win. And knowing that, Rand saw no reason to condemn him now. Ingtar would almost certainly have the same change of heart this time around, making him a more reliable ally than many of the non-dark friends Rand had dealt with over the years. Lan asked Ingtar about the situation, receiving a rather optimistic report that even Rand's friends probably saw through immediately. The man guided them to Lord Egelmar's study and said his goodbyes, returning to his duties. Egelmar rose and exchanged greetings with the group, while a few servants brought refreshments and some cloths to wipe away dust. He led them to a sitting room adjacent to his study, where everyone took a seat. "A long journey from Tar Valon," Egelmar said. "You must be tired." "Our journey was both shorter and longer than that," Moiraine replied. "We ask to stay here for one night of rest and fresh supplies, if you can spare them." Egelmar frowned, clearly having hoped Moiraine would aid the fight at Tarwin's Gap, and Lan too. He voiced that thought, pointing out that Moiraine would be an army by herself, and if Lan flew the Golden Crane, an army would follow him. "All is not yet lost," Rand interrupted. "We must travel into the Blight now, but the Shadow may find itself surprised, thinking it has the advantage when it does not." "Confident words," Egelmar said. "Who may you be, young man?" "Rand aL'Thor from Two Rivers. I fear there is little more I can say right now, although I am sure we will meet again soon." "You all are?" Egelmar asked, his eyes passing over their group. "Those I do not know, that is." "All but Tom," Rand responded, indicating the gleeman. "I would have sooner thought you were an aiel," Egelmar admitted. "And you hold yourself different from your friends too." "I am not from the Two Rivers by blood," Rand nodded. "I fear I cannot divulge too much else, although I can say that Moiraine Sedai knows my secrets." Egelmar glanced at the Aes Sedai, who nodded. "Then that is enough for me. Moiraine Sedai, do you need aid in your incursion into the Blight?" "No," Moiraine answered. "The more men we have, the easier we would be to spot, and they could not contribute to our cause. I have confidence that we can achieve our goals." "Then that is more than I can say regarding Tarwin's Gap," Egelmar admitted. "I wish you all the best of luck. Perhaps you could table with us tonight." "We would be honored," Moiraine responded.